I forgot about
I was
that.
saying before I was so rudely interrupted.
We're now filming, so my bad. I
It's
was
all
trying to
good,
do
man. You
something.
know.
But good day, everyone. This is Big Said Dentistry Co-Sign back again. Thanks for tuning in. And for those who have never seen this before or this is your first time, I have this platform called My Friends Are Better Than Yours because I've been in journalism for so many years, and I'm sick of people. When I say people, I mean like the people I have to cover and things of that nature. And during the course of my life, I've met some great people. I have some great friends, and I decided that I want to basically feature them more so than the artists that make more money than God, and they don't need my services. But and today we have someone else. I haven't spoken to this man like literally have a conversation outside of emails or what's up, literally in years. And like you're about to find out that he's one of the dopest people I know. And I'm gonna stop this because people say I should do an intro, but when I do intros, I kind of get flustered. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever we talk about, we end up talking about anyway. So I'm like, I don't want to do intros. I want people to introduce themselves, and then we just take it from there. So I take advice from people, but not really because this is my thing. I'm going to do what I want, anytime I want, every time I want. But anyway, Big Set Industry Coast time. My friends are yours. My friends are better than yours. My featured guest is Guy. I'm going to pronounce his name correctly this time because I always mispronounce it on purpose. Is it Primus or
Yeah, it's
Primus?
Primus. Yeah, man. Yeah, like come on, like the band. You know what I mean? And we got to get you got to get out some more, man. If I'm one of your dopest friends, you're you need to get out straight up.
You, you know, well, I mean, yeah, I do need to get out, but don't sell yourself short. But anyway, let's start off right away by letting them know, like, a little brief bio of, I guess, what you're doing now, who you are, a little brief intro, so that way we can head right into it because I got 1,000 notes and I got to figure out how I'm gonna start. So I'll let you,
Okay.
let them know who you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I always start by saying, I'm from Pittsburgh, and that tells most people, if you know folks from Pittsburgh, I'm the blue collar guy whose mother made him read when she was, was at the library all the time. We were just talking about books. We were at the library all the time, so I had a good education. But I'm real blue collar dude that just loves technology and loves entertainment. And so for the past 30 years or so, I've been really trying to blend technology, entertainment, and business, and kind of algorithmic approaches to business. And that's what I'm still doing. I started off, I started a market research company when I was in business school, Urban IQ, which is how we met, kind of back in the Vanguard days. And I've been, doing that same thing, whether it was for Starbucks or Microsoft or Will Smith, working with Killer Mike now, really just helping people understand the benefits of technology, the process of business, and the game of entertainment, right? Because it's not really a business as it should be, but how to play that game. So that's what I've been doing, man, and have had some moderate success over the years.
Moderate. That's like saying I'm a little dark skinned. But anyway, so I know like when you said urban IQ, you just took me back because of course that's when we met. We were just talking right before I clicked on record about a black owned company that was definitely ahead of its time, and I pray that there's somebody out there that's taking what was done and like either reinvigorating it or just doing it, again or better. Vanguard Media. We both were under that umbrella.
Yep.
Keeping skills, Lynn Burnett. I
Yep.
mean, it was a great company because we have so many not only creators but so many intelligent people. And if we were to list off some of the names that are doing their things right now that started at Vanguard, we'd probably be here for another 15, 20 minutes because we're going to forget other people. But I'm gonna just roll a few off my head. Erica Pittman, Jamil Spencer, um, Adrian Smith. I mean, I know I'm going to forget people, but it's just amazing that the talent that was under that umbrella, and what I appreciated about being allowed to work there, because I knew Keith when he worked at Vibe, and me and Keith always had a I'm not gonna say a love hate relationship because I hated him, but I don't know if he loved me. But the funny thing with Keith was, as intelligent as he was, I like the fact that he made people feel comfortable. At least it made me feel comfortable. Even before I started working there and working at Vanguard, I felt so invigorated because I'm working with Black people. I'm working with people that it's like everybody that worked there were literally entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Came under this whole thing. Roy Johnson, like Amy. I mean, like I said, I can't just.
Yeah.
But
Bill Cosby, yeah, for sure. I mean, it was nuts, man.
but the fact that we all worked under this one umbrella, and literally a large quantity of people that worked under the Vanguard Media umbrella are still working in the industry, or if not in the entertainment industry specifically, at least still in some type of industry and still doing things. And I know when we first met, with your company, like I mean, I was always on a more creative writing because even though I wasn't actually, I think was I right? Yes, I was right. I was
Yeah, you were writing, yeah.
Yeah, I was working at Impact. I admire the fact that what y'all were doing on your end, because you were doing like analytics and things of that nature, at a time where people weren't really as involved as they are now because everything is numbers nowadays. Everything is analytics. Everything is like, even when it comes to social media, it's like when people want when people want to sign to a record company, you can like be popular, you can be the most talented, but it's like, how many people follow you on Instagram? So it's like, what made you like gravitate towards the analytics phase in order to be comfortable in what you're doing now, like 30 years later?
Yeah, so I mentioned my mother taking me to the library. I was also pretty good at math. My brother's really, really good at math. Like he was a state math counts champion and the whole 9 yards, right? He was really, really good at math. But I was good enough at math where that was a thing where I thought I could be successful at, right? And in retrospect, when people go into the entertainment industry, a lot of people start in the mailroom or they start as writers or interns or PAs or whatever. My ego wouldn't allow me to do that, which was a mistake. Like I'll just kind of put my hands up and say, like, that's a mistake. That I met Charles King years later, and he started in the mailroom. Right now, he's running Macro. You know what I mean? So like it's starting in the mailroom. Not starting in the mailroom is questionable decision that I made. But that being said, I was an engineer, right? And so I got my start analyzing and developing spreadsheets. When I went back to business school, the thing that got me to business school was I actually helped National Public Radio rewrite their program pricing model. And just the analytics that came with that, and I saw that no one else could do it, or not that they couldn't do it, but no one else was doing it with the artistic flair that I was doing it with. So you either had the eggheads over here crunching numbers, or you had the people talking business like they knew what they were talking about and they never did, right? And so I just put those two together, and like I said, that's what I've been doing for many years. My major when I was working on my master's in engineering was decision support systems, right? So you talk about how the algorithm works and why do you make this decision. I did logistics and business process reengineering, and I just applied that to entertainment because that's what I loved, right? Like I love hip hop. And so it was just a matter of getting with like-minded people. And you mentioned Len and Keith and Jamil, like those guys had vision. And we didn't always execute at the highest level, and we sometimes were under-resourced. But the vision that those guys had was unparalleled, and that's what we need more of that today. But that's what got me started. Is I was good at it. I was better than everybody else at crunching the numbers, right, and then telling a story with those numbers.
Yeah, and it's amazing that, as I stated, that nowadays everything is about numbers. Everything is about like everything is about something that can be. Before it was more so the feeling, or if you had talent, and I'm talking specifically like within entertainment, and entertainment, of course, under the whole umbrella. Even with sports, even coaches in sports now, they go by analytics.
For sure.
And it's funny because you had the most successful coaches that had no access to anything like that, to nowadays where the most successful coaches use analytics, which is the reason why they're successful.
Right.
Being that you were so ahead, because like I said, I've always been on the creative side. So I mean, I used to be a singer, I used to do music, so I never thought about numbers.
Were you in a boy band?
Nah, actually, we were in the band, but that's another story. But it's just funny that like you were on the cusp of it and you stayed with it, and like you said, you combined it with something that you enjoyed, as opposed to taking the route of going strictly into what the number crunchings were in a field that you probably would have had nothing to do with, and you made it work. Now I know that I can't even list the companies you've worked with because it's like and not just the companies, but impressive. Even with Overbrook, like I said, I'll be here for like the next 20 minutes just naming the people you work with. But
that's the problem. That's because I have ADHD, man. Like that's all that is.
but how how does it feel knowing that not only were you involved with successful companies, but every company that you've worked with had a different trajectory as far as what they were doing and what you were doing with it. How are you able to, I wouldn't say adjust, but yeah, adjust to working within your constraints to fit into what they were doing as one entrepreneur and then being brought into a company? Like how did you make that work, and how do you still make it work today?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer this with a bit of a little analogy here. So Yogi Berra, I'm a big baseball fan. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I mentioned that Pirates fan, and the whole nine yards. But I was a catcher.
Yankees,
Yeah,
Yankees,
yeah. So
Bronx,
yeah, for sure.
Bronx.
I mean, what you guys had, a few more national, world
A few
champions,
more, yeah, a
a
few
few
more.
more. But like I grew up in a We Are Family era, right? And I was a catcher, and so like I knew every catcher, I knew their stats in the whole nine yards, But and he retired before I started playing. But Yogi Berra was still a personality, like a really big personality. And Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And that's really my philosophy. Is like, okay, at every it's um, game theory, right? A Markovian memoryless process of saying, here's where I am right now, and here's a decision I'm forced to take, right? I have to make a decision. So what's going to lead to the best outcome at this point in time, forgetting everything else that's happened in the past, right? You take your expertise, and you take your knowledge, and you take your relationships with you, but forgetting about your past successes and your past failures, given where you are right now, what's going to lead to the most the best outcome, right? And so that's really the everything that I've done. Like you mentioned, I was at Starbucks, and like Howard, I was working with Howard Schultz and Ken Lombard, really fantastic leaders. And then I tell the story where I had the Starbucks stock price was at 54. I had options at 57, and for 3 straight months, almost every day for 3 straight months, the stock was dropped to it went from 54 down to like 16 or 9. I can't remember. Like I'm mixing numbers up in my head, but it was below 20, from 54 down to 20. And so I'm like, I saw the writing on the wall. You know what I mean? I'm like, I have to get out of here, because what's going to happen is they're going to have to retrench and refocus on the business, and they're going to kill the entertainment group. And so we launched this really great initiative. I never sat in a meeting with them, but got to exchange a head nod, black man head nod with Steve Jobs before he passed away. So I saw him in the hall at the Moscone Center in San Francisco. We launched a product, this partnership with Apple, and then I turned in my resignation 2 weeks later, and then 6 months later the entertainment business was dead, right? They killed it. So the product that I built it still existed for 7 years, right? The pick of the day cards, that was my program, and it was at the point of sale at Starbucks, so people remember that. But the entertainment group itself was no more, and so that's just an example of kind of being at a place in time and then seeing the opportunity. Similarly, when I left Overbrook, VR was a big thing. And so when I left Overbrook, I started a VR company, and it just so happened that my co-founder had just worked on the BFG with Steven Spielberg, right? So Spielberg became a shareholder in our company, and then Kobe Bryant was working with Spielberg, and so Kobe became a shareholder. James Hetfield from Metallica, right? We had all these really incredible people, but it was just a matter of being, taking what I knew, taking my experience, taking the relationships I had, and using that. And at that moment in time, saying, what should I do? Like, what is it that I'm supposed to do right now?
And it's funny because I was just about to ask about the VR company as well, because like I stated before, like you're always at the cusp of something,
I'm
and
at the bleeding edge, man, and sometimes it's a little too early. Like so, like just being honest, right? So, but it's good to be there. But you look around, there's never any black folks, right? Just to be honest. But then you're like, sometimes you're just alone, butt naked and alone. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what it is, man.
So my question to you is, like, what are your thoughts? Because like I said, I'm going to be all over the place because that's
Yeah,
how
let's
my
do it,
brain
man.
operates anyway. AI is a big thing right now,
Yep.
and the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize is it's been a thing for a while, but it's more in the open now, and for better or for worse. What are your thoughts on AI? Because I know there's some people, like I'm the type that I saw the Terminator, I saw iRobot, I saw those type of movies. So when I think AI, I'm thinking the Terminator and everything's gonna take
You
over, and
should
we're gonna
be,
be
right?
slaves
You
to the
should
robots
be.
and things of that
They're
nature.
coming for you, right?
Yeah, so it's like, what are your thoughts? Because even I had a conversation with 19 Keys about 2 years ago,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's like,
oh yeah.
we as Black people need to be at the forefront of AI. And I'm speaking to him, I'm like, I'm trying to be with you, but I'm still kind of scared. So 2 years later, I'm like, it's still a thing. And now every company is basically has an AI initiative because they got rid of DEI, but that's another thing. Anyway, but
They gotta have some acronym. You always have to have some acronym.
yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on the technology? Well, AI in general.
Um, I find it difficult to imagine my life without it at this point in time. Right. What I feel like, so I've been using AI for a few years now, well, 2 years in really in depth.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now I move with a team. I feel like I move with the best of best and brightest of uh, anybody who I could hire to do work for me, to do any research, to do any analysis, to do any calculations. I feel like I can, in the matter of moments, ask a question and get a response, and then challenge that response and have an ongoing dialogue with these AI chatbots, right? And I think you're right to be afraid. I have this conversation with Ed Young, who was one of the founders of the Source magazine. We both thank the AI after it gives us a response, right? Because they're coming for you, like honestly, and all that data, it doesn't go anywhere, right? So when I'll say this about 15 years ago, it was during Obama's first kind of term, and so whenever that was, I was doing a session with Paul Otellini, who was the CEO of Intel at the time, right? And we're up in Portland, and we're walking from the venue to the stage where we're going to do this panel. And he starts telling me, he was like, "Yeah, Singularity is about 50 years away." And I said, "What's Singularity?" Right? I didn't know what he was talking about. And Singularity is the point where computers are as smart as humans, right? So they're indistinguishable between their intellect and their ability to reason, right? And he said we're about 50 years away, and I was like, I don't, you sound crazy. And the closer we get, right? So that was almost 20 years ago, 15 years ago or so, right? And the more and the further we go, I'm like, oh, he was right. Like, so I thank the AI bots all the time. There's nothing that I don't ask it. I have conversations, one chat that's been going on for 2 years because I'm launching an AI business, right? And so I started off with a hypothesis, and I've just been in this ongoing dialogue with ChatGPT for 2 years around the same topic. So it takes a while for it to load every time, right? It's almost like you're ringing the bell waiting for somebody to come through the door, but it's like I don't make any moves because it remembers everything that I said, right? And it's not like a human being. It's like, oh, I'll get back to you. It's like, no, I'm going to give you the answer right now. As a matter of fact, I'm a part owner of Run the Jewels. Has a cocktail, ready to drink cocktail, product called Juice Runners, right? And so they launched it last year. I came on board and started doing a bunch of work for them. And one of the things that we're looking to do is like see where do celebrity brands grow? Where do they go? Right? I could go and sit up online and type, or I could hire a researcher to do that for me, or I can just ask GPT, hey, list all the celebrity associated spirits brands and how they've done for the past 5 years, right? And then I can take that information from ChatGPT and put it into DeepSeek and kind of say, hey, is this right? Right? Or are they telling me the right thing? Because sometimes, you've heard of some hallucinations. GPTs can hallucinate. They make stuff up. And so, like they just fill in the blanks, and then they start answering the same question over. I mean, they give you the same answer over and over. So, I go back and forth between models, but I think it's indispensable for someone like me right now because it allows me to be so much more productive. And again, writing articles. I've written 2 articles I posted to LinkedIn. I give it the premise, and I go back and forth with it. So I'm serving as an editor instead of a writer. I've been working on a book for 20 years. Said when I left Bad Boy, right? I started working on a book called B Boy B School, right? And I've been working on a book for 20 years. I'm not a writer. but I can turn out an article in 5 minutes, if I have the thoughts, right? So that's how I look at it, as indispensable. And I'm starting a business around it, because the companies I work with, I've been working with Corey Smith and blacksmith for several years now, and Corey is dope, man. He's one of the most charismatic and caring managers that I've seen. Like, a lot of people just take your money. Corey's like, he's invested in all his clients. And so I look at what good management is and what bad management is, and I look at all these content creators, and I'm like, there's an opportunity here to actually give people Corey level service, right, without Corey. Corey's he has Dave Chappelle, and he has Vince Staples, and he has some up and coming artists, and he doesn't have time for anyone else, right? But I can provide, maybe not 100%, but I can provide 70-80% of kind of the types of services that Corey provides via AI, because I know what it looks like. I know how to manipulate AI, and I know algorithms. And so that's really that's my feeling. I feel like I've been on a soapbox for a minute, but those are my feelings on AI.
No, that's good, because I know you have a company that's AI powered.
Yep.
Can I? I mean, I don't, because I read stuff, but then I forget what I read, and it's like,
Me too.
so it's like, yeah. So I'm going all around, because I'm like, let me try to sound intelligent, like I did research when I looked at one line. So it's like,
Well, let's separate intelligence from knowledge, right? So you're intelligent. You're always going to be intelligent. You just didn't do the research, right? So we won't say you're not intelligent because you didn't do the research, right? But no, like I said, man. Here's the thing. I am a student of business. I'm a student of people getting taken advantage of, and I look at the origins of hip hop, and I look at how many billions, and I won't say trillions. I don't want to exaggerate, but tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars that have been created, by hip hop. And then you look at the founders of hip hop, even the people that were successful in kind of subsequent iterations of hip hop,
yeah,
and they're not getting anything close to what they deserve, right? And so Jay-Z said, I'm overcharging you for what you did to the Cold Crush. I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that lyric. I appreciate the thought, but I'm going to do something a little different. I'm not going to overcharge you. I'm going to try to right the wrongs that were done to Grandmaster Caz, right? How do I kind of build something so that the next version of Grandmaster Caz that comes along, right? And he might be a podcaster, she might be an author, she might be an artist. Oh, that's I have to just get my daughter snack when I'm picking her up for school. So forget that. So, but the point is, like, how do I look at how do I make sure that content creators, the best and brightest, most creative people in the world, earn what they deserve, and then keep more of what they earn, right? And so that's really what the business is geared to doing, is to really understanding kind of some of the gaps that people are taking advantage of, and giving them the knowledge, because knowledge is power, right? We know that from Schoolhouse Rock. You know what I mean? So, like, how do I give people the knowledge with an AI algorithm, and the things that I've seen over my 30-year career in and around entertainment, and give that and put that in the power of their hands? And then how do I let everyone benefit from the knowledge of one, right? So if I get some information and I share that with you, you're better off too. And then we're better off as a community. And then we're not taken advantage of. We're lessening, because I do agree that when people have capital and they put their capital at risk, they should benefit, but they shouldn't own everything. Right? They shouldn't own your masters. Like, that doesn't make any sense, because I mean, and people have been fighting against that for years. Prince and Ray Charles, and you could go on and on, and I had the benefit of working with Otis Redding's estate, right? And I look at I mean, dude was in his 30s, early 30s when he passed away, and they're still eating because he was a good business person up front. So every time someone, the Chub Chubs or whatever, sing, RESPECT, they get their dividend check, right? They get the royalty check, right? Because he wrote, respect, right? God bless it, Aretha Franklin, and kind of, fantastic, great that she did that. He wrote it. You know what I mean? So when you understand that, and then you see people giving away their genius, it's just something that I want to correct via AI.
that's a good thing. I know you've been honored, well, featured, honored, acknowledged by, like, Black Enterprise, Ebony, and you've been labeled a tech leader. You know, I don't see it, but now let me stop.
Yeah, me, I'm too busy looking this way. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
right, exactly. I'm too busy trying to get my knowledge instead of paying attention.
yeah.
But no, but I'm gonna tell you what's funny because the conversations I have with people that I've known for years, and like I said, even if I stay in touch with people, just like everyone doesn't know what I do, I don't know what everyone else is doing, but I'm abreast about certain things. So I do appreciate when other people recognize, somebody like you being a tech leader. I'm like, Guy? You mean that guy that used to with the great no, Guy? No, let me stop. But how does it feel when you do get that recognition? And I guess like I know some people aren't comfortable, or some people run with it, or some people lie and say they are, and they really aren't. But when you're recognized for that, like, how does it make you feel, and what does it do for you as a leader or innovator or whatever it is that someone wants to call you? Because, like I said, I know you've been recognized, and I'm pretty sure you'll have some other things in the next couple of years that you will be recognized for. But what feelings come over you when you are described in that fashion?
Um, there's a lot of there's a lot in that statement that you just made or question. Um, I would say that I feel humbled first, right? I feel like I don't deserve it. Like I said, I grew up in Pittsburgh, man. I'm a blue collar
Yeah,
dude.
I don't think you deserve it either, but go ahead.
Hey, that's two of us then. Like, so that's the first thing is like I'm very humbled, right? By the fact that someone would look at me in that capacity. I realize that I have gifts. I don't know. I don't always feel like I'm capitalizing to the fullest extent on all my gifts, but I'm humbled to be recognized. I feel like I have a long way to go, right? I just turned 55, right? I have a long way to go, man, and a short time to get there, right? I feel like Smokey and the Bandit. You know what I mean? Like it's like I got a long way to go. I have a lot to accomplish. I do recognize, like I have patents. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm illegitimate, right? And I know a lot of people. I was about to say something that like I don't know who watches this, man, but I know a lot of people who have stuff given to them, right? They don't
Yeah,
work nearly as hard as I do, right? Most of them don't look like us. I'll just say that, right?
yeah,
So when they have recognition and I have recognition, my recognition came with a lot more blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean? Just to be honest, right? So in that regard, I'm aware of that, so I don't feel out of place. I still feel humbled, and I still feel like I have a long way to go. But I deserve a lot of this stuff, man. Like I said, it's like I can think through things so quickly and have the answer, and I can predict what's going to happen in 3 years, right? And I can skate to where the puck is going to be, right? And I can look at something almost, like stuff comes to me. Kanye West said he hears color. I think he said, right? Something to that effect, right? So he actually hears in color. And I feel like similarly, like when if you saw A Beautiful Mind, like I'll see something happening and it'll just kind of all start like kind of floating around. I'm like, oh, that's what you do with that, right? And so that's where my patents have come from. And I do feel like I deserve, a lot of the things that I've achieved. The accolades are somewhat random, just to be honest, right? Who do you know? Who likes you? I've seen people get thrown off of lists because they're an asshole. Excuse my language. I know I'm not allowed to cuss. My mom might be watching this shit. Like,
okay, yeah. My mother would be like, yeah, whatever. No,
anyway, man, no, I got that from Ice Cube and Boys in the Hood, right?
yeah.
Anyway, so anyway, that being said, man, I just I'm humbled. Like I said, man, I have a lot more to do. I have a lot more to do.
Well, you just said something that I really appreciate. You said that being said. I just want to say that because it's that being
Go
said.
ahead. Oh, my fault,
Me,
man.
me.
Yeah,
No, I'm just saying I like that. That being said,
you
that's
can
the
ignore those
that's the
crickets in the
program for.
background, though. Yeah, you can ignore those crickets chirping in the background for that
But
joke.
I'm gonna tell you what I'm impressed about. You actually have a wiki page, a Wikipedia page. I was
How
doing a
old
little
is that thing? I can't imagine it's been updated recently.
the fact that you have one is just amazing in itself. And like I said, I'm never gonna take anything away from you. I'm like, of course, because of our relationship, I'm just teasing you, but
Oh no,
I'm,
yeah, man. That's how we roll.
yeah,
It's all good,
exactly.
man.
I was just amazed when I saw it because I was like, I got a Wikipedia page. Like, wow, but like I said, that's definitely a good thing because that means people are watching, people are acknowledging, and I think that's a great thing. But I do have a question that I don't know if I've asked you this like 30 years ago. What does Optimus mean?
Let's see. What does Optimus mean? I was a freshman at Georgia Tech, and my best friend at the time, I didn't even like my man at the time because he was obnoxious, right? He was actually, let me be honest, like he was a lot like you. But he's
Wow.
my best friend, you know what I mean? So, but he was that dude that was like, just saying, like you'd be around a bunch of girls and he'd say something and you like kind of shrink like Fred Flintstone, you know what I mean? He was that dude, you know what I mean? So like, you know, very likable guy though, you know what I mean? So he's, like I said, my best friend, was my best man at my wedding and the whole 9 yards. But every time I saw him freshman year, he would, because the Transformers were hot when I was in high school, and we're the same age, right? Roughly the same age, so he would just come up to me and say Optimus Primus, right? So like I never really thought anything of it, you know what I mean? I had my name as a DJ and the whole 9 yards, you know what I mean? But he would just say Optimus Primus. And then when domain names became a thing, I just bought Optimus Primus, right? And I felt that, it was again, that was before Michael Bay and the Transformers movies, you know what I mean? But so Optimus Prime and Optimus Primus kind of became synonymous to a certain extent. And now it's like I can't get the handle like for any time a new social media site comes out. I have the domain name. I don't even know what I'm doing with it right now. But it's just a nickname my friend George Sneed gave to me, man, my freshman year.
Now, I'm not gonna let you skip over what you just said when you used to DJ.
Oh yeah, man.
We have to talk about that because I've never heard that.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I have this thing sitting here. I went to I don't know why this is sitting here, but this is a picture of a this is a drawing that I did of a picture of me in my basement. So you can see how my abs are cut up. That's the made up part, right? But the Kangol and the turntables is all real, right? So that's yeah, man. I was that guy. Like there were a few of us in high school. It was me. There's a guy named Jim McCoy who actually ended up playing. We used to call him Jimmers. He played for UMass. Like he broke Dr. J's freshman scoring record at UMass. He was nice, and he was nice as a DJ too. So there were a few of us, But I used to do parties at the center. I'd do the graduation parties. When I was a freshman, I worked at WREK with my man Gerald Dodson, JD, and he had a show called The Beatbox. So I was like one of the posse members on The Beatbox. You know what I mean? Back in the day, and then he graduated, and I graduated to other things, other pursuits. But yeah, like I said, man, I had one of my partners actually, I thought he was a friend, and that dude, we did a party together at his brother's house. Right. So I took 3 crates of records. He took 3 crates of records. We had 4 turntables, speakers, and the whole 9 yards. That was a Friday night party. Saturday night, I went home, recovered. Sunday, I went to go get my records. Dude wouldn't answer the door, man. Then he moved, right? So I had to start my record collection all over, man. I'm still looking for that dude, man. So if you see him, you tell him I'm looking for him.
That is
Yeah, man.
funny.
Yeah, man.
I literally just so let's kind of veer back into you know um your profession. Um Thriller Dome. I mean Thriller Dome.
Yeah, yeah, yep. Yeah. So,
You
so
know,
uh,
sorry.
when I was at Georgia Tech, we were good at basketball. Like when I got there, the reason why I went to Georgia Tech is there was a picture of John Sally dunking on Brad Doherty. I think magazine, but John Sally was dunking on Brad Doherty. And Brad Doherty was doing like this, and so that made me. I'm like, yo, I want to go to an engineering school. I want to go to a school where there's the Black City. I had 5 criteria. I want to go. I had relatives in Atlanta, so I ended up at Georgia Tech, and Thriller Dome was what they called the basketball arena, Alexander Memorial Coliseum, right? So when I was there, it was like Dennis Scott and I started the same year. So like playing basketball with him and Kenny Anderson and Brian Oliver. And like I said, the domain name Thriller Dome just happened to be available. You would figure that all the people at Georgia Tech, somebody would have bought thrillerdome.com, right? Nope, it was me. So I just bought Thriller Dome, and it really kind of to me is like if you take where Alexander, now it's called McCamish Pavilion, right? That's where the current version of Georgia Tech plays, and we're not as good. Hopefully, Damon Stoudemire can bring us back to the glory days, right? But if you look right on the corner of Georgia Tech, one of the best engineering schools in the world, right? Is Georgia Tech. Right on the other side of the street is TBS. And so for me, Thriller Dome has always been this connection between entertainment and technology. And so that's why I call my company Thriller Dome. But really, it's a loan out company, consulting firm for me to do work for companies who are in technology, who want to connect with entertainment, or entertainment companies, or individuals who want to connect with technology. And all of that is kind of boosted by a foundation of business processes and algorithms. So that's what the company does.
Now, if you could make a prediction when it comes to the entertainment business and technology, what do you see coming up? Like where do you see anything going? And I know that's like just a bland out of I don't know, some type of question that there's no real logic behind it, but at the same time, um, you've always done things right before, even if it didn't work at the time you did it, but
Right.
you've always done things that even 10, 5, 6, 8 years later became a thing. Is there
Yep.
anything that you, not to say anything that you're working with specifically, because if you are working, I don't want you to give it up if that's
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
just in general, like where do you see technology, I guess with AI and specifically when I say entertainment, I mean as far as sports and things of that nature where all the black people like let me stop. But what are your thoughts on like what's coming up or what should be coming up?
Yeah. So
What
I
would
think
work?
what's going to happen is efficiency, more so than innovation as it relates to entertainment, right? So I get into arguments with people. They think that AI, for example, is going to replace creatives, and I think that's impossible, right? First of all, I've been to I've toured with Will Smith and seen what happens when people respond to him as an individual, when they see him in the flesh, and it's kind of scary. Like when he was at the top of his game, we were in Monaco. I think it was Men in Black 3 weekend, right? So we were in Monaco for the Formula One race, and we were at dinner. Steve Wynn was there. It was nuts, right? All these people that were kind of like billionaires that were around, and Will Smith got up to go get in the car, and people started chasing this dude. Like I don't want to say, I was going to use the N word. I try not to do that, but they, yo man,
I
like
tried to, but
said grown men. I saw this dude. I don't know where he was from, man, but yoked up in this tight extra medium sweater, bald head, chasing Will Smith like a little girl, man. And I'm like, yo, like you can't replicate that. And the gorillas were cool, right? I love the gorillas, but the gorillas are not, it's not the same thing. So unless you can meet and interact and engage with someone, I still think that personalities and people and the human connection is going to win out. Likewise, I was having an argument with someone, kind of is working on a project that, will write lyrics and, do beats and all that stuff. And I'm like, could they do what Kendrick did? Right? Could an AI ever generate what Kendrick did in terms of his last album and all the, like the back and forth that he has with Drake? And I can't imagine that they could write the level of lyrics that Kendrick can come up with, right? And there have been dozens of people that are, kind of the Kendrick of the 70s and 80s and 90s and early 2000s, right? Like he may be the GOAT, but there have been other great MCs before him. But the truth is, I don't think AI or technology will ever approach that level of creativity, because it requires a level of innovation and understanding. And the definition of AI is it's backward looking, right? It always has to rely on something. It can't predict the future, and it didn't grow up in Queensbridge, right? It doesn't have that level of scrutiny that surrounds it, to say this is cool or this isn't cool, right? You elevate from those circumstances to get to the top of the pile, right? It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
So what I do think though is that it's going to allow people to connect more organically and directly, and I'll say earlier, with things that they're super passionate about, right? So it's at the point right now where I don't know, your parents, kin that are still alive, but uh, AI and technology now knows more about you than your best friend. I'll just say that, right? They know way more about you, because Google's been reading your email for years. Like Zoom
I'm in
has been
trouble.
listening.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, Zoom has been listening to every call that we're on for years, right? Since the beginning. And I didn't realize this until like one time I was forced to kind of try to find something. Like, oh, they know that. They know what time you got to the meeting. They know, like when you spoke, they know what you said, like, all this stuff. So like all these AI chatbots, they know way more about us than we do at this point in time, right? Than we know about our best friends. And so what I think is that it's going to super serve every individual with some things that are most relevant to them. And then it's going to, the part that it hasn't really done a good job of is connecting people based on their interests and mutual feelings, right? So you won't have to sign up for eHarmony to find, somebody who you're, kind of should be connected with. You don't have to. The initiative that people takes, the bar is going to continue to be lowered. So that's what I think, is going to happen. I still think that and I think things will come out quicker because, like I was talking about, I feel like I have an army of talented, minions that are working with me. All that analysis, all the writing, all the dialogue might be written by, a talented writer such as yourself, but the premise and the setup and the, set direction and, all that stuff is going to be written by, someone else based on, well, stage left, right? It's like, here's the scene, you describe it and let me go in and edit it. So it's just going to be much more organic, the connections. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more relevant and relatable to every individual. And then the bonds will come a lot more quicker.
You've actually helped me retrain myself because, like I said, I've never even been on Chat GBT. I mean, I don't know anything of that, and I never wanted to know because I felt like when people use it, they were cheating, so to speak. But you gave me a different perspective as far as you. I mean, and like when I spoke to 19 Keys, he literally said the same thing. It's not a matter because I asked him basically a similar question, like, well, if everybody can use AI, then how are people going to get the edge, or how are how everyone's going to think the same because they have the same tools? But he's like, his theory was basically that using the human mind, you and I are still going to think differently. So we're going to use the same tool, but use it differently. So
Hey,
here,
Ted, I was in Atlanta during the glory days of
Freaknik,
music and the
let me
Freaknik. No,
stop.
no, I mean, like that's where I was going. Like, when Freaknik was, they attempted to commercialize it, I was there. I almost got trampled because I was holding the gate at Lakewood Pavilion, and people, like, it was like the gate started swaying like this, and I'm trying to collect money from people getting in the, in the gate, and the gate, luckily it swung open, like the chain broke instead of the hinges, or else I'd have been trampled. I'd have been one of those, people at the city college, right? So like that's real. But yeah, I mean, like you didn't see that, but I didn't grow up in New York, right? I missed that, like, all the energy. I talked to Corey Smith, and he's telling me about Harlem, and he's telling me about the sneakers and the train, and I'm like, I grew up in Pittsburgh, man. Like hip hop, yeah, Tuffy Tough, the Sinisters of Sound, and then you fast forward 20 years to
That's it.
Wiz Khalifa and Mac Miller, right? So it's like, that's everybody has different experiences, and
Yeah.
so like I couldn't think like Kendrick, man. I used to come to Compton every other year to visit my aunt, and my cousins lived 2 blocks from Centennial High School. I knew about Compton. I knew about the Noopy, that kind of the dude that was like 15 years old driving the 5.0 and El Camino to class when he was in high school, right? And he was a drug dealer, 15-year-old drug dealer. Came back the next summer, dude didn't exist, right? But I didn't grow up in Compton like that. I didn't the stuff my cousins have gone through, I wouldn't have survived, man. I was, I thought I was a tough guy, you know what I mean? Oh, no, no, no. So everybody has different experiences, man. And that's what people they want, the thing I learned from working with Will Smith is universally relatable emotion. Everybody wants that common thread, right? He tells a story of people love The Godfather not because it's a crime drama, because it's about an American family, right? That's why people love The Godfather. The reason why Pursuit of Happiness was a big hit, because Sony didn't want to make that movie. They're like, who wants to see a movie about a homeless black man, right? And if you think about it like that, not me, right? Really, I live in LA, man. I see homeless black men every day, right? But he's like, no, this is a story about a father's love for his son. You know what I mean? Either you had that or you didn't, but you can relate to it either way, right? I wish I had it, So that's the kind of thing that I think, is the main, thing that binds us all and connects us all. And once we get to that piece, it doesn't matter. You can be an editor or you can be an originator. But that is really focusing on those binds and those ties and those connections are how things are going to grow.
No, it's funny you say that because I did grow up in the Bronx and I was never in the streets, but I was around the block. And like you said, the experiences that I definitely, I mean, I went to high school with Slick Rick, Dana Dane, MC Search. Like I went like, so it's like, as you stated, my experience is specifically with hip hop is not going to be the same as yours because you're in Pittsburgh and I'm literally in the Bronx where like literally where Africa Bambaataa is in the area and I'm in Soundview where the hip hop jams were. And
Yep.
then when I get to high school, then a couple of my friends end up becoming celebrities because of so it's like, and I guess that's another reason why when it comes to AI, and like I said, I definitely have a different outlook now because I guess I can utilize the certain pinpoints to enhance what my knowledge is, as well as to get a little edge for myself. Because there are some times where I'm searching for information, I'm trying to find out something that I won't know. But maybe if I do use Chat GBI, whatever it is,
That's
you
a
know,
Georgia Bureau of Investigations, man. Like that.
but I guess because I've always saw it as cheating.
But
Um,
let's think about this, right? So you're doing these interviews.
yeah,
You couldn't feed the entire interview into ChatGPT, but you could feed the first, kind of opening segment into ChatGPT. And you were talking about how you haven't released them because you said you were lazy, right? You were being funny, right? You're self-deprecating. I appreciate that, right? But you could just feed that into ChatGPT and say, please develop an overview that this can be shared on social media. Please develop a Facebook post, Instagram post, a TikTok post based on this information. And then, you can do that. You could just kind of go to because it keeps timestamps and everything. You could just say, kind of pull this excerpt. So you could be your entire editing team and promotions team, even if you're an interviewer, you're a writer, right? You're a creative, but all the monkey stuff, right? Can be done. Again, right now, just we call them interns, right? We call them PAs. And so that's where the kind of risk is, honestly. Like, I'm worried for my daughter because she's super talented as a writer. I'm worried. I'm less so worried for my son because he's more of a personality, right? Dude he's off the chain, right? Like that dude, man. Like I'm he's going to be who he is and he's going to attract people because of it. My daughter is the behind the scenes person, right? So I'm worried that ChatGPT or like progressive text in general, like might take her opportunities, especially early on. But ultimately, she's super creative and she's kind of been exposed to a lot. So I'm not as worried for her in the long term, but in the short term, all the people that are doing more grunt work, that's what you should be kind of outsourcing to kind of ChatGPT or other AI services.
yeah. I'm gonna look into it because, like I said, it's literally like got me thinking because everyone's been trying to like you need whatever. I've gotten this far. Um, I don't know. I mean, I should have gotten farther if you want to say that, but let me stop. I just lost my train of thought. I gotta stop there. Wait. If you weren't doing what you're doing, what do you think you'd be doing? I know that sounds like a crazy question, but I mean like your career path. Because let's take hip hop out of it and let's take analytics out of it.
Yep.
What do you think you may have done as a career choice?
So that's pretty easy actually. I like to build things. Like I like to do stuff with my hands. I like I mentioned ADHD. I can't like I sit here and spin my pen. You know what I mean? Like I can't not do something with my hands, right? I'm always and I get distracted. So building, I like to do home improvement. So I would either be flipping houses, right? And like really because I like that stuff. I like laying tile. I like building things. Or I would be a carpenter, right? Jesus was a carpenter, right? Something a wise man once said. You know what I mean? Like I'm not. The beat making days have passed me by. They pass every producer, our age by except Timberland, right? For all intents and purposes. But you know, I would probably be a carpenter or a renovate houses. I just like to I like to see progress and see the fruits of my labors. and I just like to build stuff. So I think I'd be a carpenter, man. I look at all I watch Antiques Roadshow, which I probably shouldn't even admit to that, man. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't get the clown mail.
I'm gonna clown you for a minute with that one.
Hey, man, I understand why it's on PBS, right? Because it is a true look at Americana, and through the lens. I found out there was I can't remember, was Edward Bannister, I think his name. This artist, this black artist who like won this art competition in Philadelphia back in the 1800s, and the white folks didn't believe that he could paint that well, right? So they wouldn't give him his award, right? But I had never heard a dude. And then like mentioned I'm working with Killer Mike. Killer Mike has barbershops in Atlanta. And they're like, yo, dude, you talk about Alonzo Herndon, you talk who started Atlanta Life Insurance, and John Merrick, who started North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance. Some of the richest black men in America, they started off as barbers, right? Edward Bannister, also started off as a barber, right? So you think about kind of the historical elements that you learn from Antique Roadshow. And because I like arts and crafts, and I like to kind of just learn, it's actually a good show. It's kind of Antiques gives a little bit of a if they called it Fly Stuff Roadshow, it would be a different, like everybody be watching it, because it'd be like people digging in crates and finding posters. I bought a poster that I saw from just watching Antique Roadshow. I understand how valuable posters are. I bought a poster that for $70 that was from Jackson Pollock exhibit at MoMA in 1999, right? And I was like, oh, that looks like it might be worth some money. I paid $70 for it. I sold it for $1,000. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I'm not a Jackson Pollock fan even, right? But I know from watching that, how valuable posters are. So anyway.
That's a good thing,
That's way off the beaten path.
Hey, you found purpose, and it worked out for you in that one favor. So that's a good thing.
My father used to have me watching Storage Wars, right? So it's the same concept, except people finding stuff in the locker versus, kind of bringing it to some museum or something in Rhode Island, Providence or wherever, Newport.
I grew up in a city, so I'm not. Only thing I'm gonna find is crime and grief. So let me stop. I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate talking to you. It's definitely great catching up with you. Is there anything that you'd like to mention, discuss, or tell the peoples? Anything you got coming up? Any tidbits? Any advice? Any suggestions? Any recipes? Let me stop.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, that's the cue. The gardener just started up the lawnmower, so we're about to lose this. But no, man. I really who is it? KRS. I try to tell them we're all in this together. You know what I mean? Like that's really how I feel, man. It's hard. I don't know why we can't. Just, like get together and do stuff, man. But I see it all the time from other folks. Yeah. And I'm hoping to just like the best and brightest. If I'm not in that circle, man, it doesn't even matter. But like we need something that we can own, and like our heroes keep getting torn down, and like we don't have anything to hang our hat on, man, as people. So I think that's really I just hope we can collaborate, man, more as folks, right, and be more trusting, and man, somebody got to win.
Yeah, and it should be us. But
yeah, for sure.
But thank you once again. Is there any social media or anything if anybody wants to like bug you? Contact you or find out more about you. Like, do you have a website or public contact information?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? You can find me, Optimus Primus. I don't really engage in social media that much anymore, truthfully. It became a distraction. But the new company, we have a page up where people can get sneak preview of what we're working on. Is QRUSH.ai, QRUSH, like Crush Groove, but only with a QR. So QRUSH.ai, you can go there right now.
So that means K.
No, QR.
No, because you said Crush Groove.
Yeah, we're pronouncing it Crush.
I'm thinking about the hip hop movie Crush Groove because they use K. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, no, and Cole Crush brother uses C, so we those weren't available.
Let me let people know in case somebody's like Crush Groove is spelled KR, so Crush, and then they go some porn site or something instead. You know.
Oh, let me tell you one story, man. Can I tell you this one story?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been dying to tell this story, right? So I was working with, at Overbrook Entertainment, James Lasser and Will Smith, and like those guys, man. James in particular, like I think is underrated in terms of his approach to the business. Will, has gotten his flowers, but James was always in the background. But we had this intention to do a Fresh Prince prequel, like a Fresh Prince of Bel Air animated prequel. And I'm not going to say more because I probably am not at liberty to say more, but I'll just say this, right? So we were developing the website, and we were working with this company that was kind of doing some animation for us behind the scenes, and they were going to demo the website. So it's like freshprince.com, and dude starts typing FRESHP, right? The porn site comes up, man. And, from his history. I'm like, yo, man, that has to be like, we're in the conference room, man. And he types in Fresh P, and it's like, his history came up, and I'm like, man, that must be the most embarrassing thing in the world. Like, like sticky keys and the whole 9 yards, man.
He should be like, I was looking at it for research. There's certain
right.
aspects that we can't put on this. So if I can do this,
Yeah,
that's
man.
funny.
So you got to clear your history, folks.
Especially if you're gonna give a presentation.
Use a different computer or something, man. Yeah, do something.
Or use a different computer or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks again, once again, Guy. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your friendship. Because it's funny because I know I tried to we tried to get together for Black Enterprise like 3 years ago.
Yep.
2-3 years ago, whatever the case may be. But like I said, however I can help out, I definitely will. And I'm glad that you were able to do this, that you agreed to the demands I gave you, the threats. Now let me stop.
Well, you know what? I'll say this, man. Like so somebody said, real bad boys move in silence, right? So a lot of the people that you've mentioned today are working with me on my new venture, right? I'm not talking about it right now, but some of the three of the folks that you mentioned, like hip hop royalty, working with me on this AI, kind of business process venture. And so hopefully, man, like I said, I'm trying to. One of them told me, he hoped that this kind of turns into $1 billion venture because he didn't get what he deserved. You know what I mean? Like, from being an innovator, so I want to give back in that way, man. I want us to make it, and I want people to be more successful than any of us could have imagined by virtue of having knowledge, right? That's my goal in life right now.
Definitely. Well, I hope you meet your goals and surpass them. And if you need somebody to write something that doesn't use Chat GPT, then let me stop. Once again, okay, folks, this is Big Said, Industry Co-Sign. My friends are better than yours. And if you think that I'm wrong, just show me your friends and I'll prove you wrong. Once again, Guy, enjoy your week. Oh, please tell your wife I love her.
I'm not gonna tell her that.
Because I know she loves me. Let me stop. tell I said hi. And like I said, till next time, good luck with everything you do, and definitely keep me abreast. And I'm pretty sure I always see what you're doing anyway, in theory. So once again, thanks once again, and that's it. And I guess I'm gonna try to end this because just like how it started, it's probably gonna end the same way where we don't know